最近の八重堂の小説は異世界転生ものが多すぎる。自分たちの世界がそんなにも不満なのじゃろうか。
Alright, Mikey, checky, test 1, 2, 3. Looks like it's working just fine. Okay, so we are back with another live stream on Twitch, doing some Genshin resinless behavior. Not completely resinless, but I'm not going to condense it yet. I'm going to wait till tomorrow, you know, for the whole long-term encounter points thing with the commissions, blah, 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 blah. Anyway. So what am I doing this stream? I am going to do just mostly co-op and Abyss. I just started uploading a video to YouTube, should be up by now. The banners just dropped. I did a little bit of a review. I can't talk. A little bit of a review. In it, I go over my thoughts on the current 4 stars to be included with the 5-star units, as well as a little bit in detail of what I think of the 4 stars. Unfortunately, I messed up a lot on that video. I don't usually do like reviews, especially since I have to make these videos from my console because I don't have the equipment nor knowledge on how to make videos from my computer or something like that. I don't even think I have what's necessary, whether it be programs or things that I have to use to be able to do that stuff. Anyway, so I'm just going to go do a quick review for the stream purposes, and then I'll, just like anything else I do with Twitch, I'll upload the Twitch VOD to my YouTube channel, so you can check it out there as well if you missed it here, or if you just want to be able to skip forward or something, and you have an easier time doing that on YouTube rather than watching a VOD on Twitch. Anyway, so here it is. Banner review. I like the banners. I really like the character banners a lot. For Nahida herself, all 3 4 stars work with Nahida. Or Nahida works for them. To go into specifics, Kuki, great Hyperbloom unit builder. Go full AM. 2-piece, you can start off with that. Gilded Dreams and Wanderer's Troop, just as an example. If you're still climbing up in your adventure rank, maybe you're not AR 45 yet or something, just go something like Instructor, and you'll be fine for a while. Xingqiu, pretty decent unit as well for a Hyper Bloom trigger, like triggering the blooms and whatnot, to then Hyper Bloom them with Kuki. Overall, one of the best units in the game by far, and just really good to use with Nahida. Xingqiu, if you want to build them, Noblesse Oblige, if you're starting off and you haven't really gotten to Inazuma yet or something like that, it's a good set to have on him. Focus on ER substats. If you haven't even gotten to Inazuma, you're not building him for Abyss. So just focus on mostly just ER substats and crit rate. Hopefully you got a Fab Sword that you can use with him. If not, just a lot of ER. But yeah, burst often and you'll get his Noblesse Oblige would affect him and help his burst. When you get to Inazuma, or if you're a high enough ER, that AR level, world level, whatever, that you want to start challenging the Abyss, Emblem of Severed Fate, hands down, his best set. I wouldn't even bother doing a 2-piece setup on him. It's just easier to just go either, well, I mean, you could go 2-piece Noblesse, 2-piece Emblem of Severed Fate until you have a better setup, because you don't necessarily need the 4-piece Noblesse effect for a Hyper Bloom team, but it still benefits him. He doesn't snapshot the buff or anything, so as long as the buff is active, his rain swords will be doing more damage when they fire off. That said, Emblem of Severed Fate is by far his best set. If you're farming for pieces, just focus on ER substats in the beginning, and then start min-maxing to get like crit and crit damage and all that good stuff. Weapons, Fav Sword, Sacrificial Sword, or anything with ER. So there's like a 3-star sword you can use. I forget what it's called, but it's green. You can use that for the time being until you get a decent 4-star. Or you can craft a 4-star, like the Sapwood Blade has ER on it. Anything that has ER on it is good until you get something like Fav Sword or Sacrificial Sword. Whew, excuse me. Anyways, Sethos, I don't know how to build him. I'm assuming Wanderer's Troop would be good on him. He could possibly also benefit from Thundering Fury. I almost said Furry, damn it. Thundering Fury, because it increases the damage you do with aggravates and stuff. You can use his skill more often with Thundering Fury, just things of that nature. So that's kind of easy to get. They nerfed the domains, so they're easier to farm now, like all the pre 5.0 domains. Actually, no, all the pre 2.0 domains, maybe even the Inazuma ones. I have to go check that again. I haven't farmed them in a while. But I do know that that Thundering Fury doesn't have the effect anymore where, oh, if you superconduct or overload or whatever, depending on which level of that domain you're doing, that you take self-damage. No, that doesn't exist anymore. I think Blizzard Strayer's similar. I think there's something like you don't have the Shearing Cold or anything effect anymore. I could be wrong, but yeah, there's just a lot of nerfs that happen in all those domains, so they're much easier to farm in. So yeah, Thundering Fury, Wanderer's Troop, pretty good on Sethos. Weapons, Slingshot is really good. Even though if you have the event bow that increases, I think it increases your EM every time you spend energy, it may seem like that's the best bow for Sethos, because it's like, oh, he used this skill, and then you aim shot, and you sacrifice your ER for more damage or whatever. Nah, just go with Slingshot. It's just overall better. It gives you a lot of crit rate. He doesn't really need attack percent. He scales better with EM anyway, although I guess every unit in the game needs attack percent to some degree, but yeah, it having a low base attack but having a high crit stat for a 3-star weapon, that's a win-win. Just go with Slingshot. If you want something better, like a 5-star option, Aqua Simulacra is really good. Skyward Harp, I guess, for the crit stats. Anything with low base attack, pretty much. Tainari's weapon, Dichnari, however you say his name. I don't know if that will ever show up again. It showed up in the Chronicle Wish, but we haven't got a Chronicle Wish in ages. So, Aqua Simulacra is more than likely the bow that you would shoot for, because it has low base attack, high crit. And again, he doesn't really benefit from the attack stat that much. He would rather have EM. So, I don't know how to build him though, so I'm just assuming Wanderer's Troop, Thundering Fury, Gilded Dreams would work. I forgot to mention Gilded Dreams earlier. Or like maybe 2-piece EM. Or even 2-piece Electro, 2-piece EM. So Sethos is a decent unit that can work with Nahida, especially with aggravate teams. I'm assuming he's more of a single target DPS. I haven't built him or used him that often, but aim shots tend to only hit one target. I think his shots can pierce, but you would have to line up the targets, and that's not easy to do, especially while aiming. And not everyone likes to do a charge attack gameplay, so you might just want to build him to do his bursts more often, so that way you can do the normal attacks. And I don't really know what's the preferred playstyle. It just depends on you, I guess. But Sethos is not a terrible unit, but still works with Nahida, so all 3 4-stars work really good with Nahida. Hu Tao. Xingqiu, one of Hu Tao's best companions on the field. Oh, I gotta mute myself real quick. BRB. Okay, I thought I heard a noise. Anyway, Hu Tao and Xingqiu, they go together really well. One of Hu Tao's oldest and most reliable teams involved using Xingqiu, Zhongli, and like one other unit before Yelan came out. I don't know who it might have been, but it could have been like an Animo unit. I don't know. But at the very least, Hu Tao worked well with Xingqiu in the past and still does to this day. Obviously, you can't have all of her best supports on the same banner with her. So you can't have Zhongli on banner with her. You can't have Yulan. You can't have Shen Yun. You can't have Farina. They're all 5-star units. So who's the best 4-star that pairs well with Hu Tao? Xingqiu. And since Xingqiu works with Nahida as well, he's just like the gold standard for this banner. He is so good on this banner. Kuki, I wouldn't use her with Hu Tao, but I guess you could if you wanted to build an overload team with like Shabrus or something. But honestly, most people will tell you that Hu Tao Vape is definitely the clear-cut way to go, and overload teams, there are so many other options that you could use for overload teams that it would almost be a waste to pair Hu Tao with Kuki and then make an overload team. You could try it, absolutely, do it if you want, but I wouldn't. So I wouldn't say that, oh, Kuki works well with Hu Tao. She can work, that doesn't mean that she should work. Sethos, same thing. Not really a spot for him in a Hu Tao team. He's more of an on-fielder anyway. It would be kind of wasteful to put him on an overload team. If he's your only option, though, hey, go for it. Use Sethos. Trigger an overload and then get the buff from Shavrus. But I still wouldn't use him with Hu Tao. So, yeah, there's just better options to use for an overload team. And that's not including, or that's not discluding Hu Tao. Hu Tao on an overload team could work, but probably not a great team to use. If she's your only pyro unit, then yeah, go for it, because maybe you need to break a Geo shield and you don't have Zhongli or Noel built or something. That said, Xingqiu being here just makes this banner so much better than if he wasn't. If he wasn't there, Kuki and Sethos will kind of be on their own and only be good for Nahida. So this banner just makes sense to me. Like, all the 4-stars are useful in some variation on teams with the 5-star units. And you could literally make a team of Nahida, Kuki, Xingqiu, and Sethos and clear Abyss. Sethos would be your on-fielder for a short minute, and then you switch to Nahida to be on-field with her. And then you just start using Xingqiu and Kuki and resetting their abilities and stuff like that. Sethos scales with EM, so he could even trigger Hyper Blooms when Kuki isn't. Maybe you forgot to, put her heal back up or something like that. Her skill, I mean. And you're on a Sethos. It's not the worst thing in the world if your Sanctifying Ring is not currently active, if you're using Sethos on field. So that's kind of cool that you can just do a whole team of the 4-star units in Nahida, and then boom, you have a team for the Abyss right there. Overall 5-star value, Nahida's great. Her value is kind of dropping because there are so many like hyper carries and high damaging units these days. I mean, I saw Milani do 800k in co-op one time, and she wasn't even C6. I was able to look at her profile and say, oh, I wonder what her build is, and no constellations. I was like, Jesus! She did that much, and she doesn't even have constellations? Good lord! And to be fair, I was also using Dea to be her support in that co-op scenario, and yeah, 800k. I saw another one do 900k on a video. So yeah, a lot of these new units are just doing crazy amounts of damage that Hyper Bloom as a crutch, I guess you could say, for like new players. It's still good. It's still really good for new players, but for like people that have been around for a while, still playing this game for either since day one or since the first couple of expansions that came out, regions, whatever. Oh my god, I'm gassy. I'm hiccuping and everything. Nahida has kind of like lost some value, but that doesn't mean that she's bad. It just means that she doesn't get used as often because people don't need Hyper Bloom. They don't need Aggravate or something. They just want to play Mountain Vape all the time. Hell, even this current Abyss you can use Freeze in this current event, in this current Abyss cycle, because of the Consecrated Beasts. They can be frozen. The Ruin Guards and Ruin Drakes and all that stuff, they can be frozen. And then in the second half, you can just run your regular Vape team with like double GO or something, or just all-star Geo team or something. So Hyper Bloom isn't needed, but it can still be used in this Abyss. Very good for new players, Overworld or Abyss. So Nahida still has a lot of value. It's been going down, but she still has a lot of value. And you never know, they might, with all these niche supports that they've been releasing, you never know if they do release like a Hyper Bloom support of some kind, like, oh, you know, your Bloom damage will do more damage, but your characters take damage, or something. And then, oh, I can use Mara Shusei in this Hyper Bloom team, or something ridiculous like that. You never know. But, especially with Kuki healing you. So, yeah, there's just a lot of things that could potentially happen in the future. We don't know. But Hyper Bloom as a whole is still good. It's still relevant. It still works. And, yeah, just a really good banner. A really good character. Hu Tao, also a very good character. One of the best Pyro DPSs in the game. Some people will debate and say, oh, no, she sucks. And it's like, okay, well, what are the Pyro DPSs we have to compare? Okay, we got 4 stars first. We got Yang Fei. Yeah, Yang Fei exists. Okay, so she's decent. She's a 4-star. She's harder to get, right? I think she shows up in the Star Glitter shop. I'm not certain of that, but yeah, some of her cons are wishy-washy. Like they're like having a shield is cool, but it's more of a support thing, not really a DPS thing. I've never played Yang Fei on field as a vape DPS, so I couldn't really tell you how good she is, but I don't think she's better than Hu Tao. Yeah. Shang Ling, she's the GOAT, as some of the young kids would say with their slang terms. No cap. And that felt terrible. But seriously though, Shang Ling is just an all-around great unit, but she's not Hu Tao. She's not an on-fielder. She's mostly an off-field sub-DPS. I know that there was a time where people were playing physical Shang Ling. Did I say Yang Feng earlier twice? Anyway, I meant to say Shang Ling. I know sometimes people were playing physical Shang Ling back in the day when 1.0, like when the game first came out. I wasn't playing around that time. I was playing around the first time Yai Miko first came out. That was the time that I started playing the game. And at that time, Hu Tao existed. Yan Fei existed. Shang Ling, great unit, but she's no Hu Tao. Maybe it was Shang Ling that people used to run with Xing Shou and Hu Tao and Zhang Li. I don't know. Anyway. Or it could have been Bennett. Bennett, you can play him on field. That is a possibility. I just don't know that he's like the greatest vape DPS or anything. I mean, you can certainly make it work, but let's be real here. The damage that he does would not stack up to the same amount of damage that Hu Tao has the potential of doing if you build it right. So, yeah. Alright. That's all I can think of on the top of my head for 4 stars. This is a stream, so I could just go to the character archive, whatever. So I'll just do that. We go Pyro. Alright, so we have Amber. I forgot about Amber. Next we have Xinyan. Next we have Toma. Okay, seriously, what? If you're an Amber main, hey, hats off to you. You're awesome. But is she better than Hu Tao? Does she do more damage than Hu Tao? No. Just, no. There's no opinion on this. This is just factual. A level 1 Hu Tao versus a level 1 Amber. Hu Tao will still do more damage than the Amber. Just, period. Her numbers are better on her talents. You put them both on the same team with like Hydra units, and Amber is not getting the same amount of reactions as Hu Tao is on those teams. Like if you run Xing Shou, for example, if you put Amber, or if you use different Hydra units, then they might steal your vapes, and in which case Hu Tao is again better. So yeah, I don't know why I'm talking about Amber. Xinyan, we don't talk about Xinyan. All right, Tom. Okay, no, that's not fair. All right, Xinyan is a weird unit that scales with defense, and she has a shield. And I think it's like something happens if her shield is up, but then otherwise, if it goes down, if the shield gets broken, then she loses value. I don't play her. I don't know how she works, but I just know that she's a Claymore unit, and one of her best teams is Mono Pyro. That's my understanding of her. I mean, Hell, people used to compare her with Dea. And say that Xinyan was better than Dea, but only on like Monopyro or something. I don't think that's true, by the way, but I'm not a theory crafter or anything. I don't do all these calculations. So yeah, Xinjiang, not better than Hu Tao. Toma, he's not a DPS. I think in the early days, people tried to build him as a DPS, and I even messed up because I thought he was supposed to be an attack scaling unit. Because guess what? He ascends with attack percent. But at the end of the day, he is a shielder, and it is better to build him as a shield bot or as a virgin carry. Well, off-fielder, but still, as a virgin unit. Does virgin do more damage than Hu Tao? I have no idea. I've never used it, to be honest. But I would say, like, just regular raw power and hits and baits and stuff like that, Hu Tao would beat out Toma, even. So, yeah. Chevreuse is not a vape carry. No need to even go there. Gaming, probably the biggest contender for being a good on-field DPS. That is a pyro unit that isn't a 5-star unit. He's probably the only one that may be able to compete with Hu Tao, but is he stronger than Hu Tao? If you put them on the same teams, so Farina, Shenyun, who else? Bennett? Actually, I don't know who the third unit would be, but... Oh, probably Yelan. If you put them on the same exact teams as Hu Tao, I feel like Hu Tao would still do more damage. And you would just do normal into charge attack into jump plunge and then repeat the process. And then, yeah, you just compare the damage there. That's not to say that Gaming's bad, but Hu Tao, I feel like, would still do more damage. Now let's look at the 5 stars. D-Luke, Hu Tao's better. Klee, Hu Tao's better. I'm not even gonna sit there in front here. Yoimiya, she's good, but I still think Hu Tao is better. I don't own Hu Tao, and I still think she's better than Yoimiya. That's not saying that Yoimiya is bad. A lot of people don't like Yoimiya and they think she's bad. Dea is bad. Yoimiya, great. Hu Tao is better. Dea, as a DPS, Hu Tao's better. Linny, as a DPS, is probably better than Hu Tao. But they do use different teams anyway, so you could use both, right? You can use one on one side, the other on the other, on the second side, or whatever, depending on the abyss. So yeah, you could run like Linny with Bennett, Shengling, and Animo, or Shilonen, or something. And then you could run Hu Tao on a Farina, Yolan, Shenyun team, and then boom, now you have both. So why are we comparing them? Whereas Yoimiya might need to use Yelan or Xingsho or Zhongli, where Hu Tao might want those same teams. So it's better to compare Yoimiya and Hu Tao versus Linny and Hu Tao. So yeah. On that note, though, I will say this: Yoimiya, I used her in this abyss on Overload team, and it worked pretty darn good. I still haven't uploaded a video of that, but it worked. Hu Tao can't work in Overload, so guess what? Both of them could work in separate teams, so why are we comparing them? Anyway, all I'm trying to say is Hu Tao is very strong. Sure, the newer units can be argued as better, but that doesn't mean that Hu Tao is weak. It's the same thing with Nahida. Nahida is losing value because we have so many units that are just super strong, but that doesn't mean Nahida is bad. Right? It just means we have new characters that do different things, and they do a lot of damage too, or something. So overall, banners are great. Especially if I were to compare to the last banner we had, man, I need to turn my fan on. It is so hot in my room right now, and I'm just yapping away, putting out even more hot air. If we compare to the last banners sucked, in my opinion. Shilonen is a great unit. Shiori I don't really care for. She looks cool, I'm not gonna lie, but I don't care for her playstyle or anything. Like putting on her skill, switching off, and then... It's not even her playstyle, it's just that she's Geo. She's a Geo sub-DPS, and I'm not a big fan of using Geo for damage. I should start building my Geo units like Noelle. I've kind of built Kachina, and Shilonen. Shilonen I definitely built, but as far as the banners that we had last time, before I get sidetracked again, I don't think that they were good. when you compare it to this banner, the 4 stars, at least to some degree, work with each 5-star or very well with each 5-star, or the 5 stars work very well for those 4 stars. So it's give and take, right? The last banner, we had 2 Geo 5-star defense scaling sword users. Yes, Shiori also scales with attack, but that's not the point. They scale very well with defense. Okay? I want to say that again. The last banner we had was 2 5-star Geo defense scaling units. And you know who was missing from that banner? Goro. Why didn't we get Goro on a banner with 2 5-star Geo defense scaling units? It made no sense. It was a bad banner. Say what you will about Cole, Dory, and Candace on their own teams. Dory can work with Shilonen, but Cookie works too. Charlotte works too. Hazo doesn't work, so I'm not going to mention him. Who could we have gotten that we didn't get? Let me see. Can I go by 4-star unit? I guess not. Okay. So, here's some characters that could have been on the banner last cycle. Charlotte, we could have had. I'm not going to mention Femine if I'm talking about units that don't work. Layla, we could have had. We got Dory, we got Candace. Yunjin is a defense scaling unit, we could have had. Goro, obviously, we could have had. I don't remember the last time Toma was rerun. I feel like it was recently, so I'm not going to say Toma. Definitely not Sara. Yanfei, we could have had. I wouldn't say it would have been good to have her, but we could have had. Rosaria, we could have got Rosaria. She's an off-field unit. Like she uses her skills. She puts down her burst. I can't talk. And then she just goes off-field, and then you can do crystallized shard reactions with Rosaria with Shilonen, right? So we could have had Rosaria. Again, I don't know how Xinyan works. I think we had her recently, though, so I'm not going to talk about her. Diona? Did we get Diona recently? If we didn't get Diona recently, then we could have used Diona. If we didn't get Shangyun recently, we could have used Shangyun. So there's a lot of units here. Hell, Noelle, even though she got like 4 reruns in Fontaine, we could have used Noelle on that banner, and it would have been just fine, right? So there's a lot of different characters that would have worked better than the ones we got on the most recent banner with Shilonen and Shiori. Goro's a big one. Charlotte hasn't had a rerun in a long time, so she could have been useful in that sense. She can put her cryo stuff down, her burst lasts for a little bit long, right? So you use her in tandem with Navia Shiori and create crystallizes for cryo, right? And then you can use that with Farina. Now you have a team-wide healer that works well with Farina and also pairs well with Shiori and Navia. So, yeah, Charlotte could have been good on that banner, but we didn't get Charlotte, and we haven't gotten Charlotte in a long time. We got Dory and Cole. Make it make sense. So yeah, when I think about the last banner cycle that we had, I think it was terrible. The 4 stars on it were terrible. I wanted Candace, but that doesn't mean Candace was inherently good. I will say this though. The one good thing I will say about Candace is that she buffs normal attack damage, and you can build Shilonen and Shiori as an on-field DPS. And so having normal attack damage buff could work. That doesn't mean that Candace works well with them, but at least she can work with them, right? So she wasn't the worst unit on that banner. And I'm not just saying that because I was trying to get Candace. I'm just saying at least I know she does something for Candace. Dory, I will say at least she can create crystallized shards for both Shilonen and Navia teams, right? And Navia can use Shiori, but unfortunately Shiori, that's not even her best team, is to use her with Navia. I was just using that as an example earlier with like Charlotte and Farina and whatnot, but Shiori doesn't really pair well with Navia at C0. She can work, but she loses some value if you use her on the Navia team. She's better with Ito, Noelle, hell, DPS Shilonen. So, yeah, think of that what you will. I didn't mention Kachina either because Kachina was on a banner previous to the last one. Anyways, so yeah, comparing this banner to last banner, this is so good of a banner, especially if you're a new player. This is such a good banner to use or to pull on. All the 4 stars are good. I don't use Sethos, but I know he's a decent on-fielder with an aggravate DPS. So yeah, there's nothing much more to say. 5 stars and 4 stars on this banner phase are just really good. Not to mention, Hu Tao as a 5-star brings home her signature weapon, and now let's go into the weapon banner. So I talked about this in the video too, but I kind of messed up and skimmed over some things. So let's talk about the Staff of Homa. It's good. If you want to pull for this weapon banner, then this is not a bad weapon to get, even if you're not going for it. It provides attack percent based off of your HP, and if you're low on HP, even more attack percent. Most characters that want to use Staff of Homa are on field, or not on field, are damage dealers. And damage dealers, in most cases, when it comes to polearm users, are attack scaling units. But even if they don't scale with attack, this still provides 20% HP, which is good for, hey, look, Candace. Obviously, this is not something I would recommend for Candace if you're building Candace more for support. But yeah, it's one of her best weapons if you're building Candace as an on-fielder. So there's another unit that, while she doesn't get benefit from the attack stats, could if you were using her for that, for those circumstances. Anyway, that said, the crit damage goes hard. It's 66% crit damage. I don't remember the decimal point, but 66% crit damage is very good. It's just an overall great stat stick. You can't go wrong with accidentally getting a Staff of Homa if you're not going for it. If you're going for it, well then let's talk about the other weapon. So, 1,000 Floating Dreams, otherwise known as Nahida's weapon, is also a decent stat stick, but not as many Catalyst users would want EM. It's really just for the reaction-based units. So characters, for example, like Sucrose. What am I doing? There we go. This is easier. Here we go. Okay, so characters like Lisa, if you're trying to use Aggravate or Hyper Bloom, can use it. Barbara, if you're using her on Nilu Bloom, for example, she can use it. Ning Wang, if you want Crystal... no, I'm just kidding. Sucrose Taser is... that's one of her best teams, is Taser. You can also use her with Sucrose. With like a national team where you run her, Farina, or Xingqiu, or both, and Bennett, and or Shangling, depending on like what units you have. And she's a really good driver for those teams. Taser is better though, but she shares EM. That's the main thing. And based on however much EM she has, she will share that with the team as well when she's doing her skill and burst and stuff like that. I forget which one it is, but let's just take a look here. So right here, when she swirls, she shares 50 elemental mastery, and then right here, when she uses her skill or burst and they hit somebody, then you just increase everyone's elemental mastery based on Sucrose's elemental mastery. You don't have to swirl. You don't have to absorb an element. You just have to hit with her skill and burst, and or burst. And she shares EM. So Thousand Floating Dreams, whether it's on a taser team or a national team or something like that, she's sharing a lot of EM, and so those units will benefit from that shared EM. She benefits from her swirls and the EM, the swirl reaction as a whole. So yeah, just really good on Sucrose. Mona, I would say no. Klee, no. Yangfei, I don't play Yangfei on field, so I don't know. Kokomi for sure on a Nilo Bloom team, Thousand Floating Dreams or Sacrificial Fragments is the way to go. Arguably Sac is better, but Thousand Floating Dreams does have a lot of EM, and it also gives an extra 40 EM to the team, so that's good too. And then you have the damage bonus or EM, depending on how many of the same element of Kokomi is on the team. So on a Nilo team, you would get a portion of damage bonus and a portion of EM if you're running like 2 Hydro, 2 Dendro. Yaimiko, I would say just use Witsith if you have it. Witsith can get a lot of EM, but on top of that, Yaimiko scales with attack, so she gets more benefit from something like Witsith than Thousand Floating Dreams. So while it could work, I wouldn't recommend it. Hazo, no. Nahida, absolutely. Wanderer, no. Baizu, maybe. Nilo Bloom, I guess. I don't really know. I don't have Baizu, so I couldn't say. Nivlet, no. Rising, no. Charlotte, no. Shunyun, definitely not. And Milani, she does benefit from EM. But I think she benefits better from like the Natlan craftable or other HP main stat weapons. So Thousand Floating Dreams is not the greatest stat stick, but there are units that can use it. Sucrose and Lisa are two of the best units you can use it on. Barbara for Nilo Bloom, but yeah, it's not as universal as something like Staff of Homa. Now if we look at Staff of Homa, Emily can benefit from it. She scales with attack. Arlecchino absolutely can benefit from it. It's one of her best weapons outside of her own. Kachina, no. The crit damage still helps Kachina, but she doesn't scale with HP or attack, so that's the only downside. But hey, 66% crit damage is still crit damage. Chevreuse scales with HP, so I mean, if you want to give her some damage, then it could work. Mika, no. Yao Yao, no. Sino, yeah. Sino's best weapons are usually like anything that gives attack, so attack and EM. So yeah, I mean he scales better with EM, but he does take advantage of attack still. So having something like Staff of Homa is not the worst thing you can give a Sino. Candace, we talked about. Shenhe, no, I wouldn't use it on Shenhe. It's not that high base attack, but if you're doing like a DPS Shenhe, go nuts. Yunjin, no, she scales with defense, and she wants ER more, so the defense, the Natlan craftable or a Fav Lance is just her best in class. Toma, yeah, actually, he scales with HP on his shield, so you can give him Staff of Homa, and it doesn't matter that he has very little damage to offer, just the fact that, you know, the HP could work on him, it's not a bad thing. I wouldn't, but it's an option. Black Tassel would be better, though. Raiden Shogun actually does work well with Staff of Homa, especially if you want to give Shanling your catch or something, I'm assuming you fished for the catch. Staff of Homa actually works well with Raiden Shogun. It's not one of her best weapons, but I mean, actually it is, because of the crit damage. She doesn't ascend with crit rate or crit damage, so it really works well with her. But you really got to struggle to get more ER stats if you're not using the catch or Fab Lance. So it's not recommended, but it does work. Rosaria, definitely one of her best weapons, hands down, no argument. Staff of Homa just is a huge stat stick for someone like Rosaria. On Hu Tao, you know, it's not that great on Hu Tao. Obviously she has better, I'm kidding, it's obviously her signature weapon, and it works the best on Hu Tao. Xiao can use Homa. I've even seen like streams and videos where people use what is it called? What's that set called? It's the one with echoes. What's wrong with my brain? Okay, I'm gonna have to do this. I can't believe I'm doing this. I'm gonna remember just before I pull it up. I feel like. No, okay. Vermilion. Fuck! I knew it. I knew I was gonna remember as soon as I. Damn it. Okay. So, let's go back to Shao. So there was a video or stream or videos or streams that I saw where people or a person was using Staff of Homa with Vermilion, and they were getting a crap ton of benefit out of using Homa on Vermilion, because if he got down to halfway health, then Staff of Homa was buffing him even further, and it ended up being his best in slot over Primordial Jade Wing Spear. So it does work. And especially if you use him with, let's just say, Hunter and Farina, you might see him dip below 50% very often. However, on a Farina team, I would say Primordial Jade Wing Spear or maybe some other spear is better than Staff of Homa. But again, it's still really good on him. It's a really good stat stick. If you're not using him with Farina, and you're just using something like Marashese or Vermilion, it's still pretty damn good. Especially Marashese Hunter giving you crit rate. I'm going to stop saying all the time. Since that set gives you crit rate, then you could benefit from just having a weapon that gives you more crit damage instead of crit rate. So, yeah, Shao, it's not his best in slot, but it can be. It just depends on what you're using, what team you're using, what set you're using, stuff like that. At the end of the day, it's still really good on Shao. Zhongli, best in slot. I said again. Black Tassel gives more HP, sure. However, bursting with Zhongli is not a bad thing. I know a lot of people would rather not burst with Zhongli in the Abyss, but he does do good damage. You don't even need to give him a Geo Damage Goblet. Just give him HP, all 3 artifact pieces, Circlet, Goblet, Sands. Build some crit, and watch what happens. It's not the biggest burst in the world, but it has a benefit. On top of that, C2 Zhongli wants to burst, so there's that too. If you don't have C2, you can still petrify units for a small amount of time. Give yourself some time to go through your other characters, and why not just give him something that will help his damage, right? Just do the burst, hope it does some damage, petrify the units, the enemy, and then put up his shield, or put his shield up and then burst, whatever you want to do, and then just, start your rotation over. It's just good, period. It's one of his best in slot weapons, especially for 5-star. Arguably, Favlance and Black Tassel are just as good, if not better, in certain circumstance, or if you're just focusing on his skill, then you're not really trying to do damage with his little stone steel, whatever. But his burst is good. So, Staff of Homa, win. Xiangling, what is there to say about Xiangling that hasn't already been said? She is the Polearm Archon. I don't care that people say Pyro Archon, but yeah, she is the Polearm Archon. She can work with just about every polearm in the game. Just about, not every. So, is Staff of Homa good on Xiangling? You bet your ass it is. Just make sure you're changing your build accordingly so that you have more ER. But yeah, it's just good. So yeah, a good majority of the polearm users can use Homa. Pretty much everyone in the middle right here. And then there's Hu Tao, Shao, Zhongli, and Xiangling. So yeah, more polearm users can use Staff of Homa than Catalyst users can use Thousand Floating Dreams. Man, this is a long segment to the stream. Talk about resinless behavior, right? I'm doing a freaking banner review on stream. So, if you were pulling 4,000 Floating Dreams, it's not the worst thing in the world if you got Homa. If you're pulling for Staff of Homa, it's not terrible to lose the 1,000 Floating Dreams, but it wouldn't necessarily be great. especially if you didn't have the units that could take advantage of it. Sucrose is very common though, so I feel like at least she could use it. Let's look at the 4 stars. I'm not going to read everything on the 4 stars. I kind of have a good idea of what they do. Let's start with Lion's Roar. Attack main stack, and I said stack? Attack main stat and works with Pyro and Electro units. I said again. So, similar to Lava Walker and Thundering Fury, or not, Thunder Soother, if a unit is affected by Pyro or Electro, Lion's Roar will cause your character to do more damage to that unit. So one of the best users for Lion's Roar is going to be, what is her name? Kaching. I was going to say Kachina, but I'm like, no. Kaching, I almost said Kachina again. Kaching can use this pretty well. It's one of her best weapons. And even Claran can use this pretty darn well. Especially at high refines, it can do probably better than the Fontaine Craftable. That said, there aren't a whole lot of Pyro Sword users in the game currently. So you're looking at really just using this for someone that benefits from Pyro being on the target, such as Kaya in a Melt team, or Electro Sword users just as a whole. So Lion's Roar, in that sense, if you take away its effect, is just an attack percent stat stick. And if we're just looking at the attack percent main stat, we have free-to-play options that are better. We currently have the Fontaine Craftable. Let's check the Natlan Craftable before I talk out of my ass here, because I think that's defense. I want to say the Natlan Craftable is defense. Ah, I went to the wrong. By the way, I'm doing this because I can look at all the craftables, not just the Natlan one. Oh, I could have just went to my teapot. Oh wow. Okay, there's something made. Alright, let's look at them. So we have Sapwood is high base attack, energy recharge main stat. Finale of the Deep is high base attack, attack percent main stat. What just happened? Did my phone just... Oh, damn it. Bigsby just turned on my phone. That scared me. It's pretty far away, so I didn't hear it that well, but that creeped me out. It said, I didn't understand you. I'm not talking to you. Anyway, so we have Finale of the Deep. It's a high base attack, or decently high base attack. I think it's 565. No, wait, hold on. There is one, let me see, Sapwood is 44, 44, 41, I think Iron Sting is 42, yeah, okay, so, and then I think this is also 41, okay, so there we go. Finale of the Deep, high base attack, so 565 at level 90, and attack percent main stat, so this already is the same as Lion's Roar, and it's free. Now, when you talk about the effect, it's easier to just get healed than it is to afflict an opponent with Pyro or Electro, right? Depending on who you're using it with. So in that sense, Lion's Roar is better on a unit like Kaching, but Finale of the Deep works simpler for a unit like Clarant. So Lion's Roar loses a lot of value. This is a defense main stat, so I'm not even going to look at that. We also have Aminoma. So this is really good on units like Jean or Ayaka. I wouldn't want to use Lion's Roar on Ayaka because the secondary effect, or the main effect, has no value for Ayaka outside of a Melt team, and people don't really play Ayaka on Melt anyway. Some do for like Abyss Showcase videos, or hey look, Ayaka Melt, look how it works, or something, but the majority of players that play Ayaka aren't running her on a Melt team, so they get more benefit out of something like this. Aminoma Kageushi. Anyway, so again, free to play alternatives where you don't have to pull on the banner to get Lion's Roar or something like that. So I think I've said enough that needs to be said about Lion's Roar. Fruitful Hook can only work on plunge attack units. Also high base attack, so you're looking at 565 with an attack percent main stat. It's a decent stat stick, just for that. But if I look at, let me look at the weapons, because I don't know that there's a lot of free-to-play options, but let's see. So this is high base attack with energy recharge and an attack bonus on it. A lot of people have this. Fontaine was yesterday, so a lot of people have been playing since Fontaine at the very least, and may have been playing since before that. If you pay to win, you have Serpent Spine, which is a very good effect, so this has crit rate already on it, and it does not require you to plunge. Fab Great Sword. So, unlike the other Fab weapons in the game, there are some units that benefit from Fab Great Sword Claymore, but the majority of those Claymore users want to use something that will give them more DPS, so something like Ultimate Overlord's Mega Magic Sword or Serpent Spine would work better than Fab Great Sword. I'm not going to talk about Dia right now. What else do I have? White Blind for defense scalers. I'm not going to include that. Here we go. Earth Shaker. It is a Natlan craftable. It's an attack percent weapon. I don't know the base attack. I have to look at the blacksmith again. But after a party member triggers a pyro-related reaction, the equipping character's elemental skill damage is increased by 16% for 8 seconds. This is Kinich just through and through. This works very well with Kinich. However, this also works with Gaming. This also works with Diluc. So the new Fruitful Hook is good for those same characters, Gaming and Diluc, on a plunge team. But this does not require you to plunge. So once again, we have free-to-play alternatives. And for those wondering, oh, I don't have the Natlan billets yet, you can convert your billets at the crafting table using Dream Solvent. And if you've been farming your weekly bosses, at least 3 a week for like Battle Pass or something like that, you should have Dream Solvent by now. Or at the very least, if you're trying to crown units or level up your talents on your units, you need to farm these weekly bosses, right? So you probably get Dream Solvents. So Fruitful Hook is fine. I just don't think it's great. The crit rate is awesome, but again, very niche. You need to be plunging. The crit rate does not work for any other attack, just plunge attacks. So Gaming's plunge attack, I'm assuming, would proc this effect, giving him 60% more crit rate on his plunge, or 32 at R5. And Diluc, same deal. But again, Natlan craftable does not require that, just requires a reaction for you to get more damage, and has the same or similar base attack and attack percent main stat. Dragon's Bane, there's nothing much that needs to be said about Dragon's Bane. Unlike Lion's Roar, Dragon's Bane works on some of the best reactions in the game, so Hu Tao uses this very well, and it makes sense that this is on the banner because Hu Tao is on the banner. Hydro and Pyro, so again, if you afflict an enemy with Pyro, you're doing more damage, and Hu Tao is Pyro. If you afflict an enemy with Hydro, you're doing more damage, and Hu Tao's best teams have Hydro on them. So great weapon for Hu Tao. On top of which, it's an EM main stat. So even without the secondary effect, it's an awesome stat stick for EM users. For example, and I'm not advocating for this, but you could use it on someone like, where is he? Sino. There are better options for sure, but it's not bad on Sino. Dragon's Bane is not bad on Shangling. There are better options like the Catch, but it's not bad. It's great on Toma. Burgeon teams go Burr. I don't know what the slang is, but yeah, you can use this on Toma and it works pretty well. Mika, no. Candace, maybe. Assuming it's like a Nilo Bloom team, if she's the one proccing the blooms, then yeah, sure. And you're dealing Hydro damage, so now the enemies are taking more damage because they're afflicted with Hydro. So maybe the blooms will do more damage because of that. I don't know for sure, but it does offer EM, so it works for Candace. Shenhe no, Zhongli no, Yao Yao yeah. Yao Yao would benefit from EM, especially again on a Nilo Bloom team where you want more EM. She doesn't really need that much HP to be a good healer, so that's another nice thing about Yao Yao. So Dragon's Bane Yao Yao. Arlecchino, for the same reason that it works well on Hu Tao, Arlecchino can use Dragon's Bane. She has better options, but she can use Dragon's Bane. Rosaria, for the same reason that you can use Lion's Roar on Kaya, you can use Dragon's Bane on a Melt team with Rosaria. She has better options, for sure, but at least you could use Dragon's Bane on Rosaria. Get some good melts. I hate to say this. Everything inside of me, in my heart, and in my brain, and even in my lungs, they want me to stop breathing when I'm about to say this. But it is proven that Raiden Hyper Bloom is not a bad team. So, using Dragon's Bane as Raiden's Hyper Bloom weapon of choice is way better than our free-to-play craftable Kitane Cross Spear, because she won't even need energy. You just skill, next character. That's all it takes. Alright, and then the rest of these units are the characters I'm using on my team right now, so I'm not even going to talk about them. So Dragon's Bane is very useful. Do I like Dragon's Bane? No, I can't stand it. I always get Dragon's Bane. I want to stop getting Dragon's Bane. But for a new player, or just someone that doesn't have that much to work with yet, Dragon's Bane is good. Eye of Perception doesn't exist. I don't know why this is on the banner, because I've never seen it in game. It doesn't exist in my world, in my headcanon. This is just an interesting design. I like the purple, I guess. It's a shame that, you know, this doesn't exist in the game, because, you know, I wonder what kind of effect that Hoyoverse would give this weapon to give it some meaning. I'm sure it's got some crazy lore behind it too. Like, oh man, this thing must have come from the abyss or something, and is like some sort of awesome weapon that is unleashed on the world on Conria, disaster, whatever. This thing is probably so cool, but unfortunately, you know, for us, it's on a banner, but the weapon doesn't exist in game, so I can't really rate it. Definitely can't rate it good. So yeah, not much to be said about Eye of Perception. Favonius Warbow. Okay, I'm kidding. Let me go back to Eye of Perception. Here, my honest review. Don't use Eye of Perception. Alright, going on to Favonius Warbow. Favonius Warbow is an interesting weapon. It is absolutely a good weapon. Most Fav weapons are good weapons. However, Favonius Warbow is is the only Fav weapon that you get for free. So if you're struggling to clear Abyss, don't pull for the Favonius Warbow. Pull for the characters, then pull for the weapons, and then hopefully you get what you want. And if Fav Bow comes home, then Fav Bow comes home. But as it stands, you can use an R1 Fav Bow on someone like Yelan, and it works just fine. When Yelan first came out, I didn't have many Fav Bows or refinements for Fav Bows, and I think I had R2 Fav Bow or R3. It worked just fine. So Favonius Warbow is a great weapon, but you do get it for free. So when I say stuff like, oh, there are better free-to-play alternatives, or there are just free-to-play alternatives, Fav Bow is free. So you don't have to pull for it. Just don't do something silly and feed it into another weapon or something. So yeah, there's not much to say about Fatbo. It is a great weapon for the units that could use it. Just kind of, I'm going to go down the list here, make it just like I did with the other ones. So, Shijuin probably could make use of it. I would say yes, because energy recharge is just good, and you can get a crit and share the white particles with your team. So, why not, right? Sethos, I'm going to say no. I think he's better. By the way, that weapon he's currently using, I just have him holding it. Slingshot is better. Linny, no. Farazan, yes. Farazan is very good with Favbo, whether you're C6 or not. Tainari, no. Kole, yes. Sacrificial Bow might be better, but she still is pretty good with Favbo. Yuan, absolutely one of her best 4-star bows in the game. Goro, yes, absolutely. It is simply his best 4-star bow in the game. Nothing surpasses it, because Goro isn't a DPS. He's not even a sub-DPS. You can build him to be a DPS or sub-DPS. But at the end of the day, the only thing you need to do with Goro is energy, 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 energy. That said, his best set isn't Husk. Husk does not give him energy. His best set is not Emblem of Severed Fate. You want to know what his best set is? Exile. A 4-star artifact set. Give him a 5-star energy recharge Sands, and then just a crit rate circlet on Exile. Doesn't matter what the goblet is, and just focus energy recharge in all your substats. That's it. That's all you need. And that's why Favbo is simply his best weapon, because he actually needs a lot of energy to burst often to support units like Ito, Shilonen, Shiori, and Noel. And Albedo. Kujisara, no, not her best in slot. She doesn't need to burst often anyway, but it's not her best in slot just because she wants high base attack. Yoimiya, no. Ganyu, no. Child. I'm gonna say... Oh my god, I just got a bot chatter. And because I banned all those phrases earlier, he wants to say, hey streamer, just wanted to say you're doing great. Your streams always brighten my day. Keep it up. I'd love to be your fans to connect more. Add me on Discord. Kingslay1. Yeah. Hey Kingslay. Fuck you. I'm banning you, I'm reporting you, and I'm blocking you. I can't believe some of these people are so ridiculous, I swear. Another bot spamming the same stuff. There we go. I'm probably not going to do Abyss or co-op after all. My friends just got on and invited me to a party. Alright, let me finish this up though. I gotta be fair with it. Child, no. Diona, great with Favbo. Also good with Sacrificial Bow. I'm not sure which one's her best in slot. If I'm being honest, I really don't know. I would prefer Sacrificial Bow, but again, Favbo works just fine. Venti, his signature weapon has energy recharge, but it also buffs your team. His best in slot 4-star, I think, is Stringless because of the EM. But when I was looking at Venti's kit, I don't know why EM is his... Like, people... I don't know why people say to build Venti with EM. I honestly don't know the benefit. Sucrose shares EM, and Kazuha buffs your damage percent based on EM. But Venti, on the other hand, doesn't seem to benefit from EM, either for his damage or for your team. So, I don't think Stringless is his best in slot, outside of just, you know, increasing his skill and burst damage. But if you're building him for damage, you probably want attack percent or crit as your main stat. I don't know. I don't know what to say about Venti. I don't own Venti, but every time I see a guide or something, they just say build EM. But there have been guides that say you can build him for damage. EM is just the easiest way to build him. But again, he doesn't share EM with the team. He doesn't buff the team based on his EM, at least from what I read in his kit and constellations. So the only benefit that he would get from EM is his swirl reactions. So I'm guessing because swirls cannot crit, maybe that's why people say build him EM, because then he does more damage with his swirls based off of his EM rather than just the ticks of damage from his burst. So that's probably it. That's the only thing I can think of, is that he swirls so much that the ticks of damage that he does with his burst are outshined by so many swirl reactions. That's all I can think of, is that's why you build EM on him. But outside of that, yeah, Favbo would work. He would be good with a Favbo on whatever teams you used him on. So yeah, not a bad weapon on him either. Official is hit or miss. Stringless is definitely her best 4-star. Bar none, it's just her best 4-star. Even her signature weapon is not as good as Stringless. But Favbo still can work on Official. Official wants to be built for damage to begin with, so every time you use her, whether you're bursting or skilling, you're trying to crit, and you will probably proc a Fav if you use it on her. In which case, it would help her team with their energy needs even more. She's already a battery, so she would be even more of a battery with Favonius Warbow. Is it recommended? I would say no, because she's better if you just focus on her personal damage. So Stringless buffs her skill and burst, and EM actually works with aggravate, so that's her best 4-star in my opinion. But it's not to say that Fav is bad on Official. Amber, if you're gonna use Amber, chances are you're just using her as a support, either with Elegy at the end or, hey, Favbo. So just use Favbo, do some normal attacks, proc it, and then put your puppet down and leave, or something. Because you're not gonna proc Favbo off field. It doesn't work that way. So that's unfortunate, but yeah, you could just do some normal attacks and proc Favbo and then switch off. I mean, put her doll down and then switch off. So yeah, not much to say there, but if you are using her as DPS, then Favbo is not the way to go. But yeah, just so many of these units can use Favbo effectively, so highly recommend. I highly recommend Favbo if you are pulling on a weapon banner. Then Favbo being on the weapon banner is a good thing. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. It elevates my rating for that weapon banner just by it being on the weapon banner. That said, the weapon banner is never necessary. And currently, these are not Natlan or Fontaine units. And I would say Natlan and Fontaine units are the only ones where I would say their weapons could be better than their constellations. Not all Fontaine units, of course, but oh, you know what? And that was probably before we only needed 1 fate point. Now before we needed 2 fate points, so the constellation was always better, right? So in that sense, I wouldn't recommend the weapon banner. But nowadays, especially with Natlan characters, usually it might be better to pull for the weapons rather than constellations. So when the Favbo is on a weapon banner, I say go for it. These are not Natlan or Fontaine characters, so I would not recommend pulling on the weapon banner first. Hu Tao's C1 is so good that I wouldn't recommend pulling for Staff of Homa prior to her C1. So yeah, just take that however you want, but yeah. Character banner, I say 9 out of 10. Sethos brings it down, but he's not a bad unit. The fact that Sethos and Kuki don't work well with Hu Tao, they can, but they don't necessarily work well with Hu Tao. Brings down the value just because of that. But the fact that every single 4-star can work with Nahida perfectly, or to some degree, or she works with them perfectly, or to some degree, it's just really good value. Weapon banner, there are definitely worse weapons to pull for. So this is a pretty solid weapon banner in terms of the 5 stars. In terms of the 4 stars, no. Eye Perception doesn't exist. Lion's Roar, better alternatives. Dragon's Bane, good weapon. Fruitful Hook, free-to-play alternatives, and Favonia's Warbow you get for free. So there's that too. Alright, I'm going to stop the stream here. I will pick it up later because, again, I have some friends that just got on and want to party up. So I'm going to stop there. I'm not going to say goodbye because I absolutely am going to get back on. But this is just a see you later for now. Wow, I already uploaded a banner review, sort of, with including my wishes on the banner. But let this be my official review. There's just a lot of things to consider when it comes to these banners. So, you know, pull wisely, spend your primos wisely, spend your money wisely if you're spending money. And just remember that you don't need to spend money on this good to get good. So, be safe everybody, and I'll see you when I see you, which will probably be in like 1 or 2 hours. Okay, bye bye.